Welcome back to Music Kingdom. It's been about a month or two since I last reviewed Metallica on this channel, and I have been itching to do more. However, this time around, I thought we could take it back to some of their earlier work. And so, in this video, we will be listening to, giving a music theory breakdown for, and blindly reviewing the Four Horsemen by Metallica. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, my name is Francis. If you are a fellow nerd for music, such as myself, and you appreciate not just reactions, but in-depth reviews and analysis of songs, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you'd like to support the work I put into these videos, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. Alright, now before we give the song a listen, first let's briefly talk The Four Horsemen by Metallica. The Four Horsemen is from Metallica's debut album titled Kill 'Em All, released in 1983. Not long before that, Metallica was playing shows in local clubs in Los Angeles, recording several demos to gain attention from club owners, and eventually would relocate to San Francisco to secure the services of bassist Cliff Burton. The group's demo tape titled No Life Till Leather was noticed by Megaforce exec John Zazula. Funnily enough, it was originally intended to be titled Metal Up Your Ass, with cover art featuring a hand clutching a dagger emerging from a toilet bowl. However, Zazula convinced the band to change the name because distributors feared that releasing an album with such an offensive title and artwork would diminish its chances of commercial success. Soon afterwards, Metallica would eventually release Kill 'Em All, which was critically praised at the time of its release and has since been regarded as a groundbreaking album for thrash metal because of its precise musicianship, which fused a new wave of British heavy metal riffs with hardcore punk tempos. The album's musical approach and lyrics were noticeably different from rock's mainstream sound of the early 1980s, and inspired a number of bands who followed in a similar manner. However, in spite of all of that, the album Kill 'Em All did not even enter the Billboard 200 until 3 years later in 1986, when it peaked at number 155, following the commercial success of Metallica's third studio album, Master of Puppets. Now, regarding the song The Four Horsemen, it was originally written by Dave Mustaine and his former band Panic, titled The Mechanix, which appeared on some earlier demos, most notably No Life Till Leather. The song was about sex in a mechanic shop and was one of Metallica's staples during their clubbing days, albeit with no melodic interlude and different lyrics. James Hetfield has gone on to say that the lyrics were silly, and while Mechanix wasn't a terrible idea, James thought sex wasn't a good topic and wanted to do something darker. After Dave would eventually get kicked out of the band, Kirk added a solo in the middle, and James took it upon himself to rewrite the lyrics. The result being the song we know today as The Four Horsemen, referring to the biblical text about the four horsemen of the apocalypse: time, famine, pestilence, and death, detailing the end of the world. Mustaine claims the middle interlude was inspired by Lynyrd Skynyrd's Sweet Home Alabama, though it wouldn't be added until after his removal from the band. Eventually, the original song Mechanix was recorded by Mustaine, but with a new intro and a much faster tempo. It was released on Megadeth's debut album, Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good. Very interesting backstory, in my opinion at least. I think the music nerd in me just loves learning history like that. And now, at long last, it's time we give the song a listen, and just a heads up, I will be pausing a few times to share my thoughts, but ultimately to avoid any copyright strikes. And as always, be sure to stick around after the song for a music theory breakdown from our expert, and then we're going to divide the song into specific categories, grading them each, averaging them out, and arriving at an overall score. Hell of an introduction, which I've come to expect from Metallica. But knowing how young they were, it amazes me that even on their debut album, they were already this good. It's so sharp. They're so in tune with each other as a band.
You've been dying since the day you were born. You know it's all been planned. God sends out deliverance right. A sinner once, a sinner twice. The need for confession now. 'Cause now you got the fire of your life. Horsemen are drawing nearer. And let the steeds stay right.
I like the smooth transitions. They're more subtle in this song, at least so far.
Onto the dead of night. With the four horsemen right. Or do you face at night?
Thoughts so far, honestly a bit of what I've come to expect from Metallica, but in an impressive way. Because of, as mentioned, the context. This is their debut album and they were already young when they would compose stuff on Master of Puppets, for example, but to be as young as they are when they made this song, to have an introduction like that with such presence already, and the way they master certain transitions as if they'd been doing this for years already. Very impressive with that by itself. But of course, I will have to keep listening further to keep an ear out for certain musical components, obviously gauging how well done the song is overall. But I mean, so far, I love what the guitars do, along with the drummers. Ooh. The suspense. Ooh. I cannot imagine composing this. Oh, that was nasty. It has such a presence and a creativity as well. Especially knowing that this was very new at the time, this kind of sound.
Taking a stool on you, the lines that crack your face. Batman's body, it has gone through.
Now his vocals.
Wizard in every place. That's the last of what you have to endure.
Hold
What
on.
you have put others through.
These lyrics are very well written.
For you for sure. Now there's nothing you can do.
Thoughts by this point in the song. Obviously, I'm no expert at composition, which is why we have an expert, but to my untrained ears at least, I'm marveling at how fresh the song is. I would say to some extent it is a bit more repetitive, not quite redundant, than other Metallica songs I've heard. But what has also always impressed me about Metallica is their ability to keep a song that is long, fresh, keeping you engaged. And there's still a whole lot of song left, so I don't mean to speak too soon. But again, at this point in the song, that's what's really wowing me. They always come home, so to speak, to their original riff, but what an adventure otherwise, and again, especially at such a young age. Oh. I don't know if there's a lot of this kind of beauty on the debut album, but in my opinion, from what I've heard of their later stuff, it's very foreshadowing. Well produced as well. In a subtle way, but you can hear the attention to detail, how it's mixed. Wow. That part alone was amazing. What an adventure. And it's so hard for me to bop along, not knowing where it's going. Okay, thoughts by now. That solo, which was a little bit slower but even more pretty, absolutely blew me away. I was not expecting it to kind of go in that direction. With a song like this, you're just thinking hard, 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 hard all the time, which for the most part it is, but moments like that to keep it fresh. Now, on top of all of that, let's not discount the lyrics, which unfortunately, to no fault of the song other than perhaps how engaging and fun it is, are almost kind of easily overlooked or dismissed, unless of course you're tuning your ears into them. And when you do that, it's also like, holy shit, telling such a story in such a way, coupled with everything else I've mentioned about the song itself. And still, I'm very excited to see how the song concludes. I can't imagine hearing this for the first time 40 years ago. Major kudos, you know? That's a good production element. I thought the best solo had already happened. What? Alright, initial thoughts before we go to the expert's corner and before grading the song. I was not prepared for that ending, and I realize the song is 7 long minutes, but you really don't feel the 7 minutes. You're entranced in this bitchin' guitar solo, face melting, soul lifting, and then it just ends, which in a certain way is also badass. And as mentioned, I had thought the most impressive solo already happened earlier in the song, and then they hit us with that. Super well done in my opinion, and I do have further thoughts, which I'll get to later when I'm talking about the production, the lyrics, the vocals, the originality, etc. Lightheartedly grading a song that I could never dream of composing myself, which, yeah, it's kind of what we do on this channel. But first, let's go to the expert's corner for a music theory breakdown and to see how he grades the song's composition.
Welcome to the Experts Corner. This is the Four Horsemen by Metallica, and I'm here to give it a composition score. This song's in the time signature of 4/4, and it's in the key of E minor. So this song has a lot of really cool intricacies, but if we're talking about chords specifically, they're actually quite simple. Let me show you my favorite chord progression that they play. It's during the first guitar solo, which I think is my favorite part of the song. It goes E minor, D major, C major 7, and B dominant 7. It's a pretty simple progression, but I love the major 7 and the dominant 7. The presence of those always just gives the song some nice flavor. So those of you who have watched this channel before might think I'm about to give this song a lower score due to its simple chord progressions. You would be wrong. Yes, it has very simple chords, and yes, certain parts do get a bit repetitive. However, this song has so much more that's on such a high level, and it takes you for a really nice ride. There are so many tempo changes, so many intricate rhythmic things, so many wonderful melodic things. I'm talking about the guitar solos. I've listened to this song a few times now, and every single time I pick up on something new, some little intricacy they threw in there. I think it's very well crafted melodically, rhythmically, just as a whole package, and I think it's great. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Back to you, Francis.
A very special thank you to our expert for providing a music theory breakdown and giving the song's composition a great 8 out of 10. And now it's time to divide the song into 4 more categories, grading them each, averaging them out, and arriving at an overall score. Starting off with the category of production specifically, as I've often mentioned on this channel regarding genres like hard rock or metal, it is tougher to assess. Not because there's no production, otherwise I would simply put an NA for not applicable so that it doesn't hurt the score, but because there is production, it's just subtle due to the nature of the genre itself. Usually in this genre, you're going to produce it in a minimalistic way so that it's easier to go and replicate live. All that said though, even still, I will be giving this song's production a great 8 out of 10. Reason being, while yes, being on the minimalistic side and a more subtle approach, in my opinion at least, it is still beautifully arranged and intentionally mixed. It does kind of bleed with the category of production in this case, but even still, the way the instruments work together, knowing when to throw in a solo, knowing how to produce the solo, that classic Metallica sound effect on the vocals, so on and so forth. Overall, just putting this song together, which to a large extent is the job of a producer, which as reflected by an 8, in my opinion, is great. Alright, moving on to the category of lyrics. It wouldn't surprise me if historically they've been underrated, because in my opinion, when you really listen to them or even read them, they are very great, which I will reflect by giving them an 8.5 out of 10. Honestly, my only real complaint, which isn't even that much of a complaint, is that they don't necessarily flow very well, in which case on top of how well written they are would probably bump the score up to like a 9 or a 9.5, but otherwise, damn, these are some lyrics. I acknowledge they're based on biblical stuff, but even the way they're written feels biblical too. And I want to acknowledge just how impressive that is to do. And again, not to be redundant, but especially with how young they were at the time. Incredible storytelling, which is something I've really come to marvel at as I've reviewed metal on this channel. Super well done, very fresh, very creative. How often do you find lyrics with a subject matter like these? To me personally, they are the underrated star of the show. Keeping it moving, up next we have the category of vocals, and we're going to come back down to earth a bit for these. I'm going to give them a good 7 out of 10. On one hand, they aren't necessarily the most impressive vocals, especially when compared to some of the best vocals of all time in music history of any genre, which is kind of the standard on this channel. So in that respect, I'd actually go a bit lower than a 7. However, it is impressive to do what he does with your voice. It is a talent, it is a style, it is straining, and I would be a fool not to acknowledge that, even though the singing itself is to some extent subpar. So with everything in mind, instead of a mediocre 5 or a subpar 6, I'm landing on a good, not great 7 out of 10. Alright, now arriving at our final category of originality, I'm inclined to give it a very rare 9 out of 10. Now, to be fair and to play devil's advocate, is this the most artistic, creative song ever made? No, and no one's claiming it is, but with a score of a 9 out of 10, you would almost assume that to be the case. However, with this song specifically, I really feel that the 9 reflects more than anything the historical context of the band. I realized before Metallica, there was already Ozzy Osbourne or Ronnie James Dio, etc. But even still, evidently and historically, Metallica really pioneered and innovated the genre of metal for decades to come. And for a song to be as great as this one is on a debut album by a bunch of dudes who are younger than me, and again, influencing future decades of music, in its own right, that is the very definition of originality. Coupled with the great composition, coupled with the great production, coupled with the immensely amazing songwriting, absolutely a 9 out of 10. And while yes, a 9 out of 10 could also look like something more artistic, something more creative, it can also look like helping to pioneer an entire genre of music with your debut album. So now if we add it all up, including the experts' composition score, and average it out, the Four Horsemen by Metallica from their debut album titled Kill 'Em All, released in 1983, gets a great 8.1 out of 10. Which to me at least sounds about right. This is a great song. And for the aforementioned reasons, you can see how we arrived at that final score. But again, we're not the metalheads, you are. So let me know whether you think I am right on the money, batshit crazy, or somewhere in between, as well as what other songs by Metallica or whoever else you would like for this channel to review next. As mentioned, if you are a fellow nerd for music, such as myself, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you'd like to support the work I put into these videos, you'll find Music Kingdom's Patreon and other affiliate links in the description below. This has been another edition of Music Kingdom. Thank you so much for listening with me, and I'll look forward to jamming with you in the next one.